Oh my goodness, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm going to wait for you guys to come back on and we're going to finish this thing. I promise. And maybe some of you can watch the replay. I'm so sorry. It's a blizzard out there and our internet is all over the place for some reason. So we're going to get through this, but I'll wait and see if anybody still wants to tag along with me. But Benji, what's up, man? All right, here we go. Ben. All right, guys. So you guys actually missed quite a bit. So the broadcast kind of got interrupted, and there's a blizzard outside for us, so my internet is all kind of crazy, but it seems to be really clear right now because I fixed it a little bit. So anyway, let's get rolling. Nobody that I was just talking to is coming on, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay, how do I transition from my full-time job to my concierge practice? How do you do that? What I was telling everybody before was simply the fact that there is no easy transition. There's no easy transition from a full-time job to a concierge practice. There is simply no perfect, easy way. And if you expect that it's going to be an easy transition, there's going to be no struggle, there's going to be no sacrifices made, you're probably going to have a little bit of a rude awakening. And that's, again, this is no BS Wednesday, so I'm just being honest with you guys, right? So, but what I was telling them is I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I did it and what I would have done if I could go back in time to do it all over again. So, what I was telling everybody before is I was working at a full-time home health company. And I was working as a full-time position. I decided I needed more time, and I moved down to a part-time home health position. And I had the conversation with my wife, basically telling her, Shelby, this is what I want to do. This is what I absolutely have to do to gain more free time. So I gained more free time by basically moving to a part-time home health position, talking with that company and making sure that they were okay that I was only going to work about 15 to 20 hours a week. That gave my wife and I just enough of a financial cushion in order to do what we needed to do, to pay our bills, to kind of get by while I grew this thing. But what I was telling everybody before, one of the things that I get the most nervous about when people talk to me about a concierge practice is when they tell me that they do not want to make this a full-time gig and that they want to maybe try and do it as a side gig or a side hustle as they work in a full-time practice. And I'll just tell you guys, it's incredibly hard. I mean, you could be Superman or Superwoman and maybe you can get it done, but it is really, really hard to do that. It is very, very hard to grow a business unless you are really, really all in on growing that business. That's how a business is going to thrive. That's how a business is going to grow. So if I had to do it all over again, I would do this. I would make sure all my legalities are in place, number one. Number two, I would make sure that I have a marketing plan and kind of a strategy for what my niche is and where I'm going to find the people that I want to be able to find. So where do they hang out? Where are they located? Where can I go to reach them? How am I going to have kind of a marketing plan that is going to help reach them? So number one is basically make sure all of the legalities are in place. Number two, I want to make sure that I have a marketing plan in place. I actually have a direction for where my company is going to go. Because I've told you guys a million times that when I started, I was shooting from the hip and I actually had no clue what I was doing. Okay, so number one, legalities in place. Number two, I have a direction that I'm going. Number three is when I have those things in place, when I have those kind of rudimentary beginning things in place, I would have the conversation with my spouse. And if you don't have a spouse, then you obviously can skip this step. I would have the conversation with my spouse how important it is for me to do this and make sure they're on board. Make sure your spouse is on board. I cannot tell you guys how important of a step this is. If your spouse isn't on board and you're just going to go to a part-time position, not going to happen. Not going to work if you're not both on the same page. So make sure that spouse or significant other or whatever you want to call it is on board. Okay? Number four, I've got those three things in place. I would 100% without a doubt, I've got those three things in place. I would search out a part-time opportunity that I can basically, my wife and I, or myself, whatever your situation is, that you can get by, that you have enough cash flow, that you can pay your bills. That's so important. My spouse is on board on step number 1. Boom. There you go, Danielle. Good. But after that spouse is on board, I would start searching for a part-time position to where you can take this thing to the next level. But you've got to have some passion. You've got to have some fire behind it. You've got to have everything it takes to get out there and start making it happen. Because if you open up time in your life, if you open up time in your busy schedule, and you're not doing anything about it, that's a recipe for disaster. So we can't really be using this time right now to maybe do some of the things that you love doing. Like, I don't know, for us, go hiking, go skiing. Like, I wasn't using that time to drive up to the mountains and go skiing. I was using that time to get into my practice and figure out how I can market this thing. How can I get in front of more people? How can I reach more doctors? How can I have more networking meetings? How can I meet more business owners? But all of this stuff was things that I was working on. So I don't have the spousal support. And Belisa, we can get into that a little bit further because I've got some time tonight. But number 4 would be, I would find a situation to where you and your spouse, or you yourself, can find a way to pay your bills. And if that's through a part-time home health position, a part-time PRN position, whatever. That's literally what I would suggest, and here's why. Chelsea, what's up? Because that is actually taking an actionable step that is going to push you in the actual direction of starting your own practice. And I think Chelsea's actually done this step. Chelsea, we're talking about choosing a part-time position that can basically allow you more time in your schedule to start pushing out your practice more and doing more in your practice. Because as I have found out the hard way, and a lot of other physical therapists have found out the hard way, working a full-time job and trying to do this, actually trying to do this thing, it is very, very difficult. I'll go ahead and tell you guys that 100%. But if you have these things in place, if you have all the legalities that you need in place, you have all of your forms, all of that good stuff, you have a direction for your marketing plan, you know who you're going to find, you know what you're going to do, that's number 2. Number 3, you have that conversation with your spouse, you make sure that they're on board. You make sure they're on board with this thing, ride or die, all right? And then number 4, you find a part-time position that will allow you to pay your bills, but it will allow you the time to get after it in your practice. Because this step is so important, because it's basically taking the actual step to say, guys, I'm not BSing around. I'm not messing around here. I'm going to grow this practice, and I'm going to free up the time in my schedule to make sure that I actually grow this practice. And what did Chelsea say? Yes, I was going to do PRN, but now my PRN is driving Uber. And I've seen you do that, Chelsea. That's freaking awesome. Like, that is such a freeing thing to say, hey, I'm going to drive Uber. I'm going to grow my practice on the side. But that is the reason that, Chelsea, you're going to be so successful, is because you're actually taking the risk. You're actually taking that first step forward to say, I am doing everything it takes to make this practice a success. But when you're in this comfortable full-time job position, you just can't reach that. Like, you can't reach that level of saying, I'm freaking all in. You can't reach that because you've got this cushion of your job, and you've got your insurance. So that's why I'm actually saying that this is a step that I would have done again, is searched out a part-time position, make sure that company's on board, and go all into my practice. Not part-time. Not side gig. All in on my practice. That is how a lot of you are going to be successful. And I realize, Belisa, other ones watching, I realize that you may not be in a position to do this. I'm just telling you guys exactly what I would do if I was in your shoes. And for those of you that maybe don't have the ability to do it right now, make the steps necessary to start working towards getting to that spot where you can say, all right, I'm going all in. I've got what I need. I've got the plan that I need. I know what I need to do, but there's nothing like going all in with going part-time with a company. Then this is where the magic happens, right? This is where you find yourself with maybe 3 or 4 hours in a day. And Chelsea, you can probably attest to this. You find yourself with 3 or 4 hours in a day, and you're like, what the hell am I gonna do? Like, something. You're gonna do something. I can guarantee you the majority of you, if your family's income is on the line, if your income, your practice is on the line, you're going to find something to do. You're going to find something to make use of your time, and you're going to thrust yourself out there a lot more than you would have if you were still sitting back in the cushion of that full-time position. And this may sound reckless. Some of you may be like, you're full of crap. I did it. And so I did it, and I know a lot of PTs that have done it, and I'm just simply telling you guys that having a cushion makes us too comfortable. The only way to grow this type of practice, the only way to really grow this type of practice is to make yourself uncomfortable, to actively seek uncomfortable situations to make yourself grow and to make your practice grow. So many tasks, computer goes everywhere with me. I work all the free time right now that I can. Boom, exactly. So, Chelsea's living proof of it right now that you can thrust yourself into it. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's a struggle, but you can actually make it work because you are actually putting yourself in a position to succeed. That's why I want to backtrack real quick and say, that's when I hear, hey, I'm going to work full time and I'm going to grow this thing. And hey, if it grows into a big practice, that's cool. Then I'll step out of my full-time position. It doesn't work like that. Like, I've never seen it work like that because you're not showing the actual commitment to growing your practice. You're saying, oh, if that happens, that's a dangerous statement, by the way. Oh, if that happens, then that's cool. Then I'll go all in. I say go all in from the beginning if only you are sold out on this type of practice. You have to be sold out on this is the type of practice that's perfect for me. This is the type of practice that's going to help me and my family grow. This is the type of practice that's going to help me to be happy in my career. This is the type of practice that is going to help me to achieve my financial goals in my career. You have to be sold out on this type of practice, and one of the steps is taking that actual big step of maybe going part-time with a home health company and going into this practice, but only after you have some of those things in place so it's not a completely reckless decision. And then number 5, you're going to get yourself out there. You're going to meet as many people as you possibly can. You're going to network like crazy. You're going to learn that relationships are key when it comes to building a business. And then you need to decide, this is number 5, you need to decide what patient number per week that you need to get to in order for you to cut ties with that part-time job. You need to decide and create a goal for yourself. When I am averaging 5 patients a week, when I'm averaging 8 patients a week, when I'm averaging 10 patients a week, I think that's a little bit too much. But maybe I'm more of a risk taker. I don't know. But set that goal for yourself. Say I need to be averaging 7 patients a week. Because 7's honestly pretty generous. If we're charging $125 a visit, that's close to $1,000 a week. And so that means we're bringing in probably around $4,000 a month. That's pretty generous and that's pretty fair. So number 5 is set yourself an actual goal of once I'm averaging this many patients per week, boom, I'm cutting ties with my part-time and I'm taking that further step of going all in. Because I feel like the second thing that people have the most trouble with is, okay, maybe they're in that part-time position and they're trying to grow their physical therapy practice, but then they kind of get in this limbo of, well, when do I make the next move? When do I do that? And you can actually stay in that period for much longer than you actually need to. That's why I say, number 5, make yourself an actual goal of when I hit this on a weekly basis, I'm going. Like, I'm cutting ties, boom, I'm done. Once I hit that in my practice, which for me, guys, was only averaging 5 patients a week. was averaging 5 patients a week. I was charging $125 a visit. So for me, it was just enough to get by. It was just enough to get by. So I reached that point. I was averaging around 5 to 6 patients a week, and I said, boom, I'm done. See you guys. I think their name was like Gold Health or something like Gold Health, Home Health. I don't know, something like that. I told them how much I appreciated them allowing me to grow my business because they knew that I was growing my business on the side. Thank them so much, but I was like, hey, I'm ready to take this next step. And they've been nothing but supportive along the way. I've even had them try to help me to get referral sources along the way. So I had that conversation as soon as I hit that goal that my wife and I had set. Once you hit at least 5 patients a week on a regular basis, boom, cut ties, go all in. And that's what we did. And once I was reaching 5 patients a week, that's when I really started to see the fruits of my labor. I started to see what it really took to grow this type of business. And that's when I went all in. And that's when I've told a lot of you, that's when I became I became crazy about growing this business. I met with every single possible person that I could. I just had lunch with a PT today, and he was asking me, like, what is it that you feel like was the main thing that you became successful when you first started your practice and you were starting to grow it? And I told him, I talk about this in my Concierge PT course, is the fact that I became relentless at networking with people. I call it in my course being a networking ninja. But the one thing that I had learned was that if the more people that I could get on my side, the more people that I could get rooting for me, the more people that I could get knowing who I am, the more people that I could get that are basically walking salesmen and saleswomen for me, the more that my practice was going to grow. So I told him today at lunch, I said, it was becoming relentless at marketing and not being afraid to ask a person that I meet, hey man, I really enjoyed talking with you. You've got an awesome business here. Could we meet for coffee sometime? Could we do this? Can we just talk? I want to learn more about your business. Like, it was becoming relentless at that. And I want to tell you guys, I had a very deep conversation with a CEO of an oil and gas company here in Denver. You guys have probably heard me talk about him because he's my favorite. Like, we get into super, super deep conversations. And I asked him, I said, well, first, what would you attribute most to your success? And he said his network. He said, I know that I can, at this point, especially in my life, because of the network that I've grown, I can grow any business that I want. If one business isn't successful, I know I can grow 2 more businesses because I have a network, because I have basically created this network of people that I know that will help me out if I'm struggling, that will send people my way because they trust me and they like me. That's what I've tried to create. And I think it's very, very, very difficult to start a business or find a very successful business owner that doesn't have a successful network or a large network in place. So you have to become a networking master, and you cannot be afraid of people. You can't be afraid of people. But I want to tell you guys one more thing. Is I talked to him and I said, his name's Kyle. I said, Kyle, what would you say is the number one mindset? What would you say is the number one attitude that has gotten you to a multi-million-dollar company? What would you say is that number one attitude? And he stopped and he thought about it for 5 minutes, and he was like, Josh, that's a really good question. And this guy's so deep. He's so introspective. And I'm going to use that word in a minute. And he said, I truly believe it's my ability to introspect. It was my ability when I was first starting my starting my business, to be able to look at myself and think to myself, Kyle, you're doing really crappy here. You could do better here. Or Kyle, you're doing a damn good job here. Celebrate that. And the reason that I'm telling you guys that right now is because it all starts with right here and putting yourself out there and basically introspectively telling yourself, I'm doing a good job, and patting yourself on the back whenever you need to. But if you're not doing enough, I'm definitely not going to tell you to not be a little bit hard on yourself and say, let's do this thing, especially when you put yourself under kind of a strain of working a part-time position and you're trying to transition to being full-time in your practice. You're going to have to go through a little bit of struggle. So my number 6 is just simply get out there and make things happen, because that's not really what you guys asked me about tonight. Most of you asked me, how do I make that transition from a full-time job to my working more into my practice? And this is what I would say, and I'm mainly speaking to people that want to go full-time. Number 1, I would make sure all my legalities are in place. All my documents, everything that I need in place for my practice. Number 2, I would make sure I have a direction. Make sure I know who I'm trying to target in my practice. Make sure I've kind of chosen an avatar or a niche for my practice, and I know where to find them. I know what I'm going to do. Number 3, I would make sure that my spouse is on board. I would make sure that they're fully on board. If you have a spouse, if you're listening to this and you do have a spouse, I would make sure my spouse is on board, make sure that they know what's about to go down, basically. Then number 4, once those 3 are accomplished, I would search out a part-time opportunity that will allow me to basically cover my bills, but free up the time available that I can actually put towards my practice. Because again, like I said to you guys, if you're not experiencing a little bit of struggle in your practice, then you're simply not getting comfortable enough. You're simply not doing enough to grow, because this is not going to be an easy, seamless transition. It just simply isn't. So that's number 4. Number 5, I would set myself a goal for how many patients per week I need to get to in order to cut ties. In order to say, okay, I'm at 7 patients a week. As soon as I average that over a 4-week span, boom, cutting ties, I'm going into my business. But you have to basically set yourself a goal that you know, and maybe even your spouse should know, that when you hit that goal, that's when you're going all in on that business. So number 5 is set yourself a goal. Set yourself some type of goal that when you hit that, you got to go all in. You got to go all in, because or else you will stay in limbo between those two for too long. And I've seen that with physical therapists before, and I don't want it to happen to you guys. So select a goal that when you hit it, you got to be fearless and say, okay, I hit that goal. It's go time. Whether that's 5 patients a week, 40, 30 patients a month, whatever that is for you, whatever rings true for you, and whatever that rings true for you financially. When you hit that goal, go all in. And then number 6, get out there and actually utilize that time. And we can chat about that just a little bit, because I just chatted with one of the people in my coaching group about this. How do we do that? And the number 6 tip that I'll get you guys, instead of just saying get out there and utilize your time, I'll tell you how I did it. And it was basically setting up working hours. Okay, so I work from 8 to 5 every single day, even if I'm only seeing 3 patients, because keep in mind, I was only seeing 15 to 20 patients a week. So if you go part-time, you're going to free up all of this time. And you may only work like 8 to 11 in the morning, and then you're going to have all afternoon free. If you don't look at it like you still have business hours, you're going to find ways to fill that time. You're going to find ways to waste that time. And the number one thing that I cannot stand when people tell me is, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. And I've said it a lot, but we typically don't have enough time because we're not prioritizing our time. We don't have enough time because we're not prioritizing our time. So I would basically say, this is my schedule. This is my working hours. And if I'm only working 8 to 11 in my part-time job, then I'll give myself a lunch. But from 12 to 5, I'm doing something constructive in my business. And then guess what? I can go home at 5 o'clock and be proud of what I accomplished that day, not be down on myself, be able to introspectively look at myself and say, look, I worked for 5 hours on my business. I actually did some pretty constructive things. I did this, this, and this. I'm going to go home. I'm going to spend it with my family. I'm going to watch TV with my wife. I'm going to hang out with my son. And I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it because I actually did what I needed to do that day. And I think too many of us go home at the end of that day with regret, saying, I should have done more. I should have done more here. I should have done more there. I was lazy there, and I spent an hour on Facebook. I was lazy there, and I watched 2 hours of TV when I got home. I shouldn't have done that. Or I fell asleep and I took a nap. That's actually happened to me before. We have to prioritize our time and make scheduled working hours for yourself if you're going to make this kind of thing work when you're transitioning to working full-time in your practice. So that's kind of the 6 steps that I came up with to basically transition from a full-time position to working more into your practice. And again, guys, I'm mainly talking to people that want to go full-time into their practice. If your goal is just part-time, that's great. That's a noble goal, really good, but obviously it may look a little bit different, may not have to take some of those extreme measures. But I truly, truly believe if you don't make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, you're going to have a difficult time growing your practice. And so having kind of a scheduled, planned out way of maybe how you're going to make yourself uncomfortable can make the burden a little bit less, if that makes sense. So let me know what you guys think. Even tell me, Josh, that's craziness. I'm never gonna follow that. Like, let me know what you think and let's talk about it. Because I'd love to help you guys out. That's the whole point of these No BS Wednesdays, is I want to help you guys out with what you have going on. So the 6 steps, I'll just recap for some of you that just came on. Number 1, make sure that you've got all of your legalities in place. Number 2, make sure your business has a direction, has a goal in place for who you're actually going to be marketing and advertising to in your practice. It can't be everybody. It's got to be something a little bit more select. So choose that avatar, choose that niche that we've talked about before. Number 3, make sure your spouse is on board. Make sure they're all on board with this, because it's going to be a big shock to them if they're not. So make sure that they're on board, have those difficult conversations with them, and make sure that they understand how important this is to you. Number 4, I would search out a part-time position that can cover, kind of at the base level, cover your bills, so that you can at least not worry about your bills. Number 5, I would make sure that you have, after you're in that part-time position, make sure that you have an actual plan, an actual goal for when you hit this amount of patients per week or you hit this amount of patients per month. That's when you're cutting ties. That's when you're going all in on your business. And yes, that means full time into your business. And then number 6, get out there and utilize that extra time that you have. Utilize that extra time, make it happen. How can you do that? That's by actually setting set business hours for yourself. I worked 8 to 5 from Monday to Wednesday. Monday to Friday. And then when you get home, you then will have the ability to relax and not go home with any regret that day, because you've done everything that you could to grow your practice in your select business hours. That's how I would make it work. That's how I would do it. That's kind of my best tips for how to transition from a full-time job to a full-time into your practice. Andrea, thank you. Helps validate the uncomfortableness going on right now to make my vision a reality. Exactly. Again, I don't think it's possible to not be a little bit uncomfortable when you're starting your own practice or starting your own business. I saw Will Boyd on here earlier. I don't know if he's still on, but I'm sure Will can attest to, he's experienced a lot of uncomfortableness as he's transitioned into his online business. It doesn't matter if it's an online business, a brick and mortar practice, a concierge practice. You're going to have to experience a little bit of uncomfortableness. And I'll tell you this, that's actually how you grow as a business owner. So don't be afraid of it. Know that it's coming, and create yourself a little bit more of a plan like we've laid out today in these 6 steps. Mandy, you're doing it. I know you're doing it, and I definitely can appreciate the steps that you're taking. So David, what's up, man? What is going on? If you guys have any questions for me, I'm here. Honestly, I'll be on for the next 20 minutes. I'll just answer questions for you guys. So please put them in the comments. Let's just answer some questions and get some questions answered on this topic, or if it's a completely different topic, let me know. So Claire said, definitely agree with sticking to business hours, even if not seeing patients. Plus, having to be uncomfortable is all part of the process, and you're better for it. You really are. Like you're so much better for just knowing that uncomfortableness is coming, and I'm making the most of it, and I'm making a plan that is going to kind of help me get into this. Belisa, great. I'll say it again. Great question. Okay. What about lack of spousal support? Can you guys give me a hands up if you're dealing with this? Can you guys give me a hands up? Can you give me an emoji? Can you say, yes, I'm dealing with that? Tell me if you're dealing with this, because this is something that comes up so much more often now that I'm coaching physical therapists on growing their practice, is lack of spousal support. And I'll tell you something. Belisa, I already know. I know you. You're a great person. You're awesome at what you do. You're a great therapist. I can hands down say I know that your husband, it's not because of a lack of support in you. It's not because of a lack of support in your ideas. I can tell you the number one reason that most spouses lack that support, and it's just simply because of fear. It's because of fear. And my wife had this in our relationship, and it's something that we dealt with when I started my practice. Was there's just a lot of fear. You go from a full-time position, us as physical therapists, we go from a full-time position, benefits, good, decent pay. You may be the most miserable you've ever been in your job, but at least you've got this cushion behind you. And then you come to your spouse, you come to your support system, your spouse, and you want them to be all on board with what you're doing, and then they show you that they're a little bit scared. And they're like, I don't know if this is the right move for us right now. Belisa or Sharon, I don't know if this is the right move, just because we've got a family to support. And we've got a lot of bills to pay. We've got a mortgage to pay. I don't know if this is the right move for us right now. And that's the number one thing that I hear a lot is, I don't know if that's the right move for us right now. And I think that the immediate kind of thing to start thinking about is, well, when is it going to be the right move? When are we going to be in an optimal financial situation? When are we going to be in an optimal time situation? And I'm not telling you to get angry. I'm just getting fired up. So please don't confuse my firing up with telling you to get angry. This is not a topic to get angry on. This is a topic to have sensible conversations with each other with. But when are you going to have a time that's better financially? When are you going to have a time where you have more time? When are you going to have a time where you're going to be able to better and more predictably pay your mortgage? Only if you make a change. But we fear that change because there's a cushion. But for lots of us, we've been living like this for years. We've been living like this for years, struggling to get by. David, you know all about this. Going paycheck to paycheck to paycheck as physical therapists, not being able to fully pay our bills, not being able to fully experience what we truly would love to do in our families, in our personal life, in our business, because we're being held back by some of our positions as physical therapists, and we're afraid to take that jump because of that very thing. Because it is very, very cushioned. It's they make it easy for us as physical therapists to make $70,000 a year and have a benefits package. But you guys know, and that's why all 13 or 14 of you are watching right now, you guys know that that's not the way to grow. So how would I go about this? My wife and I have had so many conversations about this, so many long conversations about this, is first, I would have the deep and meaningful conversation with your spouse and tell them, look, this is what I currently know in my life. This is what we currently know. It's almost like Albert Einstein says. What is his quote? It says, it's I can't even remember. I'm going to butcher it, but it says like it's basically idiotic to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It's the same thing for us as physical therapists. Like, we're going on year after year after year in the same job, or maybe even working for the same company with the same benefits package, and yet we're scared, and our spouses are scared to take that next leap because we don't know what's in the future for that. We don't know what's in the actual future, and we can't bear the thought of, oh my gosh, what about if we get a little bit uncomfortable? What about if we get a little bit uncomfortable? What happens there, right? All of those closest to us exhibit the most fear and doubt about our dreams. Exactly, David. I could not say it better. All of those closest to us exhibit the most fear and doubt about our dreams. And it's not because they don't believe in you. It's not because they don't love you. It's because it scares them. And I'm sure it scares you too. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Can you guys relate to that? Can you guys relate to that as us as physical therapists? That year after year we may expect a different result. And the trap that a lot of us get into is we search out another job, right? We search out another job and say, it's going to be different here. I like this culture here. Yeah, this is good. This is good. I'm going to get paid more, better benefits package. Boom, 3% on my 401k. Hell yeah. Now we're rolling. Like, it's such a trap that we get into. And it's like, it really is the definition of insanity. I'm not calling any of you guys insane. I'm just poking a little bit of fun here. And so it wasn't until I actually sat down with my wife and I said, look, the only way I'm going to be happy is if I do this. I will live with regret if I don't make this thing happen. And we can go down in a ball of fire, but at least I did it. We can go down in a ball of fire together, but at least we tried it. And that was the conversation that I had to have with her, because she had been driven to a point, guys, where she was so miserable living with me. I'm just being honest. She was so miserable living with me because I was such this is no BS Wednesday, right? I was such a bitcher and complainer constantly about my job that it eventually got to a point where she was like, yeah, you gotta do this. You gotta do this for our relationship, man. Like, this is crazy. Like, you just complain all the time. You get home and you complain. So it got to a point with me where I had to have the conversation with my wife, and I said, look, I'm passionate about this. I know I can make it work, but I need you on board. I need you to support me, and we need to figure out a plan together how we can go all in. And it wasn't until I had multiple conversations like that we decided, okay, we're going to do this thing. And I've poked fun at this before. We dropped Netflix. We dropped our cable. We dropped a million different things in our life to make this happen. I want to even tell you guys what I did. I went into my leasing office. We were paying $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, 800 square feet. I went into my leasing office and I said, look, my wife and I want to start trying to have kids. Your apartment went up on us last year. It's $1,800 a month for this 700 square foot apartment. I either have to break my lease, which I cannot afford to do, and move to a different apartment, or I simply have to find a new place. I literally told him this. And I said, two options. Either you guys take my lease, me breaking a lease, it was going to cost me like $800 to break a lease. I said, you guys either take that away and I'll get in a cheaper apartment here, and you guys find somebody to fill my apartment, or I have to go find somewhere else to live. And I'm sorry, but I even told him I was like in a very I was in a stage where I just couldn't deal with BS anymore. I was like, look, I'm starting a business. This is the way it is. Is there any possible way that you guys can help me out? I never really asked for much in my life. I don't ask for freebies ever. I don't ever ask for handouts, but I had reached a point of desperation, and I went to them just kind of asking for help. And to my surprise, they literally said, look, Josh, it costs us more money to find somebody new for your apartment. So what do you need to be paying to stay here? And I said, I need to be at $1,200 a month. And they said, okay, we can't quite do that. The lowest apartment rent that we have is $1,350. But it's actually pretty close to the apartment that you're renting now, which was mind-blowing to me. And they said, if you agree to stay here for another year, we'll keep you in your apartment for $1,350 a month. We went from $1,800 to $1,350 a month. Saved us almost $500. We cut out other expenses in our life. We stopped going to places like Whole Foods to buy groceries. We went to the place down the street that was a lot cheaper. We cut out all of the extra things in our life, and we went all in together. And that's why it was actually a step. That's why I put it as number 4, because you've got to make sure that your spouse is on board. And I think the key, Belisa, is having those difficult conversations and saying, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this thing work. And I need your support. I need your support because I'm not going to be able to do it any other way. Because you're the one that I love and I need your support. How can we make this work both being on the same page? Having that conversation with your spouse can be a big game changer. A big game changer. But you've got to be able to have that conversation, and you've got to be able to know that you are not the only couple that's dealing with this trying to start your own business. You are not the only PTs dealing with this trying to start your own business. It's just something that I think it's smart. You've got to both be on that same page together. And you've got to ask that question of, I'm doing this. I'm all in. I'm passionate about it. I'm doing it no matter what. How can we do it together? How can we make it work together? How can we as a couple make this damn thing work because I'm making it happen? And I think when you show that passion, when you show that fire for what you're doing, that's when your spouse can become more on board. That was the turning point for my wife, that she said, you're serious about this. I'm gonna be all in on this with you. That was the point that she said, you're actually serious and you're not just BSing around. The good Lord is literally throwing rocks in my head to go all in on my PT business. I've got to get it moving. Guys, Sharon's in my coaching group right now. And Sharon, you know how I feel. Sharon's made incredible progress over the last month and a half or so. And sometimes, Sharon, we'll talk about this on our next call. We don't have to go too deep on this, but we've got to be able to set a goal for yourself. And when you hit that, let's cut ties with that hospital system, and let's go all in on your business. And if you guys are believers, I held on to my faith a lot when I was starting my practice. I held on to the faith that God's going to carry me through this. God's going to carry my family through this. So I'm glad you brought that up, Sharon. But if you're not a believer, then take that as you will. But I think having faith that you're going to actually make this thing happen can be a very, very powerful thing. Belisa, he won't give up his Whole Foods. Oh no, he won't give up on his Whole Foods. I would say this, Belisa. You've got to make sacrifices in order to make a business work. You just do. You've got to be able to make sacrifices. You've got to be able to maybe even say, hey, I maybe don't need DirecTV at $140 a month. I'm going to go to Sling, which I encourage you all to do anyway. I'm going to go to Sling, or hey, we can cut money down here. We can cut money down here. We can do this. We can do that. It doesn't mean that we can't still live our lifestyle, but hey, maybe we can cut back in a few ways. Maybe we can use this opportunity to cut back in a few ways, and maybe it'll be good for us. So that's kind of my best advice there. Any other questions, Belisa? First, I hope that helps. I could keep going on some other advice, but I think that's kind of my best advice in a nutshell on what to do about spousal support. But it is difficult, and I feel for you. I would just continue to have those conversations to make sure that he knows that you're serious and that you're going to do this thing and that you need his support. So, no, please don't say that. Not in new hubs. You've got a great hubs. Don't do that. It's just something. I know you are. But it's just something. It's something that a lot of us deal with. I dealt with it in my life as well. So, I have the bestest husband support. I'm grateful. Definitely be grateful for that. Do you guys have any other questions for me? I feel like this is so good. I'm enjoying this. Like, let me know. Any other question, even if it has nothing to do with transitioning from your full-time job to your full-time practice. Any questions for me? Let's answer them. Let's just keep going. I feel like answering some questions tonight. So let's do this thing. There's 13 of you on. Ask me a question, any question, and let's answer it. This energy drink got me pumped up. So, anything else? Come on, there's got to be a question out there. There's got to be some type of question about growing your practice, about finding your niche, about... All right, Belisa, I'm confused about cash PT and DUH requirements. Have you tried to network with personal injury lawyers? Josh, do you or anyone have like a running list of legalities? Here we go. Josh trying to break from traditional home health still. Russell, I would highly suggest that you go back and you listen to this live. I can't go through all of it again. I wish I could. But I would definitely highly suggest that you go back and listen to this. So let me get rolling with a few of these. There's so many. I'm not sure if I can get into all these. Cash PT and the requirements. I'll do this. I've made an ebook that I can send all of you on kind of the requirements that I feel like you need to have in place for a concierge PT practice. If you need to know that, send me a message after this live and I'll get that ebook to you. But I don't want to cover all of those right now. I think it might take too much time. So Belisa, email me or let's chat and we'll talk about the requirements that you need to put in place. Is that fair? Leo, have you tried to network with personal injury lawyers? I have not. I've heard of people having success there. I think it's great. I think it is great as long as you're willing and able to deal with workers' comp, to deal with insurance, to deal with that type of thing. Again, it's all about what do you want in your practice. For me, I don't want to deal with workers' comp. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. That's why I started my own practice. So that's kind of the reason why I don't deal with personal injury lawyers, is because I don't want to deal, honestly, with the headache that comes along with paperwork and all of that. When I started my practice, guys, I said one thing is going to be in the forefront of everything. And that is the fact that I don't want to do that much documentation. I want to spend the time with my patients. I want to spend the time getting to know them. I want to spend the time getting them better, because that's what I freaking went to school for. But I don't want to be doing documentation. I don't want to be doing workers' comp forms. I don't want to be filling out insurance forms. I don't want to be doing any of that BS. And that's one of the very main reasons I started my practice. So I don't. But Leo, I'm not telling you not to, man. I think it could be a great opportunity for you. And again, I don't know a bunch about those legalities up there in Canada. So could be a good opportunity for you. I would say go for it. Danielle, Josh, do you or anyone have like a running list of legalities? Yes. So just like I said to Belisa, message me afterward, Danielle. Sometimes my brain can be a little bit scattered, so message me afterwards and I will get you an ebook and any other information that you need on kind of the legalities that you need. Is that cool? Josh trying to break. Oh, that's right. Russell, definitely go back and watch this replay. Benjamin, specifics for different packages and pricing. Good question, man. What time is it? All right, specifics for packages and pricing. This is where we have the ability as concierge therapists to get really, really creative. And I think, Ben, the main answer to that is, I'm going to act like I'm your coach here for a second. You need to figure out who you're seeing and what type of package that they would actually want to buy into. Packages sound great and they sound nice, but we actually need to put packages together that are packages that our patients are actually going to want to buy and that are going to be appealing to them. That are going to appeal to their needs. So number one would be to figure out what is the avatar, what is the niche, what is the area that we're going after? And then deciding after you start seeing patients, what is it that they truly want? I think the best way to come up with packages is to actually start seeing patients in your own practice. Then let's start creating packages around what those patients want. And how do you do that? You ask them. You ask them in person. What is it that you want? Why are you working with me? You ask them those type of questions. Why did you choose me over the brick and mortar practice down the street? Ask them those type of questions. Then we can start narrowing down into, okay, let's create the perfect package for our customer. And I'm going to get into pricing here in a second, Ben. But for me, it was seeing patients. It was seeing my business executives and seeing the CEOs and figuring out, okay, number one, They want me to keep them in the game. They want to keep they want me to keep them active. They want me to keep them healthy. They want to keep me to keep them in the game and to feel like that they're not slowing down a bit. Let me get a drink here. They want to feel like they're not slowing down, right? Okay. I knew that. And then second was the fact that I knew that a lot of these high-level business owners and executives wanted to feel like they had somebody at their beck and call to help them when they needed it. They were just in a meeting all day. Their back hurts. They want to have somebody to call that can help them with that. Whatever it may be. They just went on a long flight. They went shooting for a shooting weekend, a shotgun shooting sports weekend, and their shoulder hurts. Hey, I'm home at 3 o'clock. Can you come see me at 5? I knew that those guys wanted me on demand. So I said, okay, they want my service. I know that. And they want to feel like they're part of something. They want to feel like they have a personal physical therapist. So for me, it was looking at that, knowing what they wanted, and I said, okay, I'm going to create a package that's more designed just simply around a number based on what I feel like it needs to be, not necessarily based on my actual per visit price. And I said, so my per visit price, guys, is $175 a visit. But with all of these businessmen and women, I've basically decided, look, you pay me a recurring fee of $1,000 a month. I know that's expensive, guys, but you've got to remember the type of people that I'm seeing. You pay me a recurring fee of $1,000 a month. You can see me for up to 8 visits per month, which if you see me for 8 visits, that's actually $1,400 for the month. So it'd be $400 off if you actually see me for all 8 visits, which they all don't ever see me for 8 visits. You get on a recurring schedule with me, $1,000 a month. I'll see you for up to 8 visits per month. I'm always there on my phone, through text, through email, always when you need me. And when you need me, I'll be there. I will make time in my schedule. I will be there for you because I want you to know that I only allow 10 people to do this, and you are like you're basically going to be one of 10 that is getting this package. So I will tell you, when you need me, I will make room on my schedule because that's what I want you to know, that you have me. You have me for good if you sign up for this package. So I basically created a package that they needed and they actually wanted. And now I have people that sign up for that package. So I would say this, Ben, I would figure out who we're seeing, who our avatar is. I would actually you and Peter actually start seeing patients in your business first, then come back and can decide what type of packages are going to be best for them based on the feedback that you get from patients. Does that help? I'll answer pricing here in a second. How long does it really take to set up the concierge practice with part-time transition? I think everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to be different. I think it's a good question. For me, I think on a timeline-wise, it took me about 6 months. But I will 100% tell you that, and this is not tooting my own horn, I'm just simply telling you guys, I had no other option. It was either be relentless at growing this business or fail and have to move back to Texas. I had kind of 2 options here. Be successful, fail, and move back to Texas. And Colorado was a dream of my wife and I. A dream of my wife and I to live here, to get to hike, to get to ski, to get to experience this active lifestyle. That was a dream of ours. So it was either thrive or move back to Texas. And so I busted my butt in those 6 months. I outworked probably anybody, any other PT in the area to make sure that my practice grew. Like that, I was relentless at growing it. So I say 6 months, but I think it's going to be different for everybody. It all depends on how relentless you are at making it happen into your life. I think that's probably the best answer that I can give you. Ben, you asked about pricing. I think the most important thing about pricing, and I'm not going to dive too deep on this because this could be an entire No BS Wednesday. But pricing, I think the most important thing is you cannot charge what you don't think you're worth. So I'm going to say that one again because I feel like that's a little bit impactful. You cannot charge what you don't think you're worth. You cannot charge Ben. You cannot charge Russell. Whoever else is on here. Belisa, Mandy, Andrea, Amy, Sharon. You cannot charge what you don't think you're worth. I mean, you cannot charge what you would actually pay to get you in your practice. That was a very poor way of wording things, so I apologize. But you cannot charge what you wouldn't pay for your service. That's what I'm trying to say. You, Ben, can't charge what you wouldn't pay to have your service. So put yourselves in the patient's shoes. Would you pay $125 a visit for your service? If you can confidently answer yes, then you charge $125. Would you, putting yourself into the shoes of that patient, would you pay $150 a visit to get your service? If you can confidently answer that, then you can go to $150 a visit. But I'd tell you the main price range that I see for a concierge physical therapist is $125 to $200 per visit. That's the main price range. But let me tell you guys something. I would all day long rather start lower than start too high. I would all day long start lower and be super confident in that price and hit it out of the park and have 8 to 10 patients paying that price before I ever step out of the gates and say, I'm going to charge $250 and then have a severely difficult time making that work. Because you can always go up in price. I think it's very, very embarrassing to have to go down in price. To say that I shot out of the gates way too much and nobody wants to pay it in my area. Like, I would much rather start at 100, 125 and knock that out of the ballpark and then say, okay, I'm going to move up to 125. I'm going to move up to 150 because this is clearly working. I can tell you guys, if you bust your butt and you're charging $100 a visit, you can make a damn good living for yourself. It's not price. It's just how much are you getting people to buy into it? How much are you actually getting people to buy into your plan of cares? How much are you actually getting people to buy into your practice? And that is not going to happen unless you're actually confident in your price. So price doesn't mean as much as we might think. I think we need to start where we're confident, where we can look ourselves in the mirror and say, I am so confident in myself that I can charge $125 a visit. That's where I would start. That's exactly where I would start. And I wouldn't start anywhere else until I'm actually confident in that price. I would go up when I'm confident in that price. I would say, okay, now I feel like I'm ready to move up to 150. Oh man, I'm out of breath, but that's how I would do it. All right. I think I've answered a lot of questions. If you guys have any other questions, I'm seeing quite a few others. I will go through this and I'll make sure they're answered on the next No BS Wednesday. But guys, thank you so much for sticking with me, even with my technical issues tonight. It's been fun. I hope that answered a lot of your guys' questions. And reach out to me afterwards if you've got any other questions. All right? Have a good night, guys. I'll talk to you later.